Welcome to this deep dive, presented by Safety One Source. This is really for you, safety professionals, risk managers, anyone really looking to enhance their safety knowledge.
That's right.
Today, we're zeroing in on a specific and I think pretty useful part of the OSHA regs, 29 CFR 1910.19.
Yeah, absolutely. Think of it maybe like a signpost or a cheat sheet. It's for certain hazardous air contaminants. So instead of maybe getting lost in broader rules, 1910.19 basically tells you, hey, for this substance, this specific OSHA standard is the one you follow.
So it cuts down on confusion.
Exactly. Our goal here is just to walk through it, make it super clear which standard takes precedence for which substance, and this is all straight from the regulation itself.
Perfect. Okay, let's dive right in. First up, asbestos. And it also mentions tremolite, anthophylite, and actinolite dust.
Right, those related mineral dusts.
So if you're in a workplace covered by the general industry scope, like Section 1910.16 mentions, what's the key reg here?
Okay, so for those, OSHA 1910.19a is crystal clear. It says 29 CFR 1910.1001 is the standard.
1910.1001. For asbestos and those related dusts.
Correct. And this is really important, that specific standard 1910.1001, it overrides any other OSHA regulation that might seem like it applies to exposure to these dusts.
Okay, so no ambiguity.
None. Given the known serious health risks of asbestos, it makes sense they have a very specific, very stringent standard that takes priority.
Makes total sense. So for anyone listening who might deal with asbestos-containing materials, 1910.101D is job number one.
That's the primary reference, yes.
Okay. Let's move on then. Vinyl chloride. What does 1910.10 tell us about that?
Very similar principle. Section 1910.19b points directly to 29 CFR 1910.1016.
1910.10017 for vinyl chloride.
Yep. And again, crucially, it takes precedence. It overrides potentially relevant rules you might find in those broader scope sections, like Section 1910.11, .14, .15, or .16.
So same idea. Don't get bogged down in the general stuff for air contaminants here. Go straight to 1910.101 and 7.
Exactly. For vinyl chloride, that's your standard.
That's helpful. Really streamlines things. What about acrylonitrile? That's covered in 1910.104C. Same pattern.
Absolutely, same pattern. For acrylonitrile, you go to 29 CFR 1910.1045.
1910.1045.
Right. And just like the others, it takes precedence over the general air contaminant rules in those sections, 1910.12 through .16 again.
Okay.
It really shows the purpose of 1910.16, clear, specific direction for these particular hazards.
Yeah, you can really see the logic. It's like OSHA saying, look, these substances are a big deal. We have dedicated rules. Go there first.
Precisely.
Now, before we continue down the list, I noticed there are a couple of reserved sections here. 1910.190D and F. What does that mean for us?
Oh, right. Reserved just means those sections aren't currently being used. It's pretty standard in regulations. Maybe they were used before. Maybe they're placeholders for the future.
So nothing active there right now?
Nope. Just acknowledge they exist, but there's no regulation inside them at the moment.
Good to know. Okay, let's pick back up with inorganic arsenic. That's 1910.19E. Where do we look?
For inorganic arsenic, the specific standard you need is 29 CFR 1910.1018.
1910.1018.
And, you guessed it, this standard overrides any other potentially applicable OSHA rules within that scope, defined by Section 1910.10 through 1910.16.
Okay, the logic is definitely holding. Next on the list is lead, under 1910.19G. What's the specific standard, and are there any differences in which sections it overrides?
Good question. For lead, safety pros need to look at 29 CFR 1910.1025.
1910.1025.
Wait, so not 1910.16.
Exactly. Section 1910.16 isn't listed there. It's a subtle difference, but it points to maybe a slightly different scope of applicability for the general industry standards being overridden in this specific case for lead.
Interesting. That really shows you need to pay attention to the details, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Precision matters here. Okay. Next, ethylene oxide. ETO section 1910.1 new Shanarge. Where does that point us?
For ethylene oxide, the standard is 29 CFR 1910.1047.
147.
Yep. And it takes precedence over different standards you might find within the full range this time. Section 1910.12 through 1910.16.
Back to the full range.
Again, it just directs you straight to the most specific requirements for ETO.
Got it. Moving along. 4-thylene-4-methylenedianiline, MDA.
Yeah.
That's 1910.10 IDA. What's the standard for MDA?
For MDA, it's 29 CFR 1910.1050.
Oh, heavy.
And this one applies instead of any different standards in section 1910.13, .14, .15, or .16. Similar scope to lead, actually.
Right, missing the .12 again. Okay, formaldehyde next. That's used in a lot of places.
Yeah.
What is 1910.1048?
And this one overrides other potentially relevant rules found within the full scope again, section 1910.1048 through 1910.16.
We're really putting together a handy reference here for folks. Okay, cadmium. That's covered under 1910.1 on K.
Right. For cadmium, the specific standard is 29 CFR 1910.1027. And this one takes precedence over other regs dealing with cadmium, but specifically in workplaces covered by just section 1910.1 SIN.
Oh, interesting. So just overriding within the scope of .16 this time.
Seems that way, yes. Again, a narrower scope specified for the override compared to some others. It highlights why just knowing the substance isn't enough. You need the specific direction from 1910.1.
That's a great point. The detail on which underlying sections are overridden is actually really valuable. Okay, 1 from 3, butadiene. BD, section 1910.11.
For BD, the standard is 29 CFR 1910.1051.
151.
And this one overrides differing standards across the broad range. Section 1910.110 through 1910.16.
Okay, and that brings us to the last one listed here, methylene chloride, MC, section 1910.15 C. What's the guidance?
For methylene chloride, it's 29 CFR 1910.1052.
152.
But there's a really important qualifier here in 1910.19 meter. It says this standard takes precedence over section 1910.16 when the methylene chloride is not present in sealed, intact containers.
So if it's sealed, maybe the general rules apply, but if there's potential exposure.
Then 1910.1052 is the specific standard that takes over from 1910.16. That qualification is key for MC.
That makes sense. Okay, wow. We've systematically gone through that whole list in 1910.11, and
Yeah.
it really does seem like an essential pointer for safety pros and risk managers.
It really is. By explicitly saying, for asbestos, use 1910.1001, or for lead, use 1910.1025. This section, 1910.19, it just cuts down potential confusion.
Yeah.
It makes sure your efforts, your compliance activities are focused on the most relevant, the most comprehensive rules for protecting people from these specific hazards.
So for you listening, especially if you're in safety or risk management, think about your workplace. Do any of these substances come up? Knowing these specific references, which Safety One Source is helping clarify here, it's not just, box checking for compliance. It's about having the right info to actually implement effective controls.
Right. And it kind of leads to a broader thought, doesn't it, when you look at how complex safety regulations can be. What other areas of OSHA compliance do you think could really benefit from this kind of super clear, direct guidance, pointing professionals straight to the number one rule for a specific hazard or maybe a specific situation?
That's a really good question to mull over as you take this information back to your work. This deep dive into OSHA 1910.1 time was brought to you by Safety One Source,
helping empower safety professionals, risk managers, and, everyone who's dedicated to making workplaces safer through essential knowledge.